My name is Claire Bennett, and I am 32 years old. For 14 years, my family lived by an unspoken rule. Whenever something good happened, it belonged to all of us. Whenever a bill arrived, it belonged to me. I didn't understand how poisonous that rule had become until my mother accidentally posted a picture in our family group chat. Across the top, in bright white letters, it said, "Bennett Family Cruise Finally, just the 5 of us." The picture included my parents, my younger sister Megan, my younger brother Ethan, and Megan's boyfriend, Chase. I wasn't in it. That was strange, considering I had paid $21,480 for the entire trip. I grew up in Cedar Ridge, a quiet Midwestern suburb about 2 hours outside Chicago. From the outside, the Bennetts looked like a normal family. My father, Robert, owned a small building supply store. My mother, Linda, worked part-time at the local library. I was the oldest child. Megan was 4 years younger than me, and Ethan was 6 years younger. We weren't poor when I was little, not at first. Everything changed when I was 17. My father's store began losing money. He borrowed to save it, then borrowed more money to cover the earlier loans. The business eventually closed, leaving my parents with a mountain of debt. That same year, I was accepted into Northwestern University. My mother cried when she saw the letter, not because she was proud. She placed it on the kitchen table and said, "You know what things are like right now." I understood. I turned Northwestern down, enrolled at a community college near home, and worked 2 jobs. I studied business administration during the day, waited tables at night, and worked as a grocery store cashier on weekends. Some of my paycheck covered tuition, the rest went to my parents. At first, it was only a few $100s. Then it became the electric bill, car insurance, my father's medication, Megan's tutoring. A replacement computer for Ethan. Whenever I hesitated, my mother said the same thing. Family takes care of family, Claire. I believed her. I believed her so completely that I failed to notice I was the only person following that rule. At 23, I moved to Chicago and joined a logistics consulting firm. I worked long hours, earned promotions, and eventually built a comfortable income. My family quickly adjusted their lives to match my salary. Dad couldn't find a job that was appropriate for a man with his experience, so I began sending my parents $1,200 every month. When their roof needed replacing, I paid $14,000. When Mom's car died, I put $8,000 down on a new SUV. When Megan wanted to launch an online boutique, I gave her $6,500. The business closed 7 months later. She never paid back $1. When Ethan lost his job because he was repeatedly late, I covered his rent for 5 months. I am not listing those things because I think I was a saint. I am listing them because, for a very long time, I honestly believed that was how love worked. I thought if I helped enough, my family would finally see my value. If I solved enough problems, they would never be able to live without me. I was right about the second part. They couldn't live without my money. But that wasn't the same as loving me. That January, my parents were approaching their 35th wedding anniversary. Mom called me on a Tuesday night, just as I was finishing an 11-hour workday. "Claire, I watched a video about a Caribbean cruise," she said. "It looked unbelievable." I leaned back in my office chair. "Did it? Your father and I have never had a proper vacation. Our honeymoon was 3 nights at Wisconsin Dells." I knew where the conversation was going. My mother always began a request for money with a sad memory. "Do you want to take a cruise?" I asked. "Oh, I am only talking, don't worry. We could never afford something like that." She went silent for exactly 3 seconds. That was the pause she used when she wanted me to volunteer, and as usual I did. "I can look into it." Her voice immediately brightened. "Really, Claire, you're an angel." During the next 2 weeks, an anniversary gift for my parents turned into a luxury vacation for the entire family. Mom said Megan needed cheering up after the failure of her boutique. Ethan needed to rediscover his direction after a breakup. Then Megan wanted to bring Chase because they were practically engaged. In the end, I booked a 7-night cruise aboard the Ocean Crown, departing from Miami. I reserved 3 premium balcony cabins, one for my parents, one for Megan and Chase, one for Ethan and me. I also paid for premium beverage packages, high-speed Wi-Fi, specialty dining, 2 private island excursions, airport transfers. spa treatments for Mom and Megan, and an anniversary dinner in the most expensive restaurant on the ship. The total came to $21,480. I still remember sitting in front of my computer, staring at the number before clicking the payment button. A small voice in my head told me it was too much. But I imagined my parents standing on their balcony, looking out at the ocean. I pictured all of us raising glasses at dinner while Mom smiled and told me how proud she was. I clicked the button. Seconds later, the confirmation email arrived. I called Mom. It's booked, she screamed with happiness. I had never heard her sound that excited when I received a promotion. Over the next several months, Mom created a group chat called Bennett Cruise Crew. She posted pictures of dresses, shoes, wide-brimmed hats, suitcases, and cocktails she wanted to try. Megan posted bikini photos. Ethan sent videos of the ship's casino. Chase shared a picture of a $900 waterproof watch and wrote, "Claire, is this included in the vacation budget?" I assumed he was joking. I replied no. He sent a sad face emoji. 1 minute later, Mom messaged me privately. "You didn't need to be so rude to Chase. He asked me to buy him a watch," he was teasing. "You always make everything so serious." That was how my family responded whenever I said no. Their request became a joke, my refusal became an attack. I kept working and preparing for the trip. I took an entire week off, something I rarely did. I bought a dark blue dress for the anniversary dinner and a good pair of sandals because I wanted to walk on the beach. I even scheduled a haircut. A week before departure, my company ran into a problem with a major client. I told Mom I might need to bring my laptop and answer a few emails during the trip. She sighed. "Claire, can't you stop working for once? I am taking the whole week off. I just said I might have to check my email. This trip is supposed to be relaxing. I don't want the atmosphere to feel tense." The comment bothered me, but I apologized anyway. The following night, Megan called. "Can we switch cabins?" "What do you mean?" Chase gets seasick. "We need a cabin in the middle of the ship. Yours and Ethan's is in a better location. Your cabin is also a balcony cabin. It's only a few decks away, but yours is bigger. It isn't." She went silent before saying, "Do you always have to make everything difficult?" I laughed because I thought she was kidding. She hung up. I should have realized something was wrong. But when you become accustomed to being treated badly, anxiety starts to feel normal. 3 days before our flight to Miami, I was sitting in my office when my phone buzzed. Mom had posted a picture in the group chat. It was a collage Megan had created. 5 faces had been placed over a blue ocean background: Dad, Mom, Megan, Ethan, Chase. Across the top it said, "Bennett Family Cruise finally, just the 5 of us." The message disappeared less than 10 seconds later. Mom deleted it, but I had already seen it, and I had taken a screenshot. I stared at the picture for almost a minute. Nobody in the chat said anything. Then Mom wrote, "Oops, wrong picture. Megan made that as a joke." I typed, "Just the 5 of you." Nobody answered. I called Mom. She declined the call. I called again. On the 3rd attempt, she picked up. "Claire, I am in a store. Am I going on the cruise?" A shopping cart stopped rattling in the background. Don't be dramatic. I asked a simple question. Am I going? Mom sighed as though I were creating an inconvenience. "Your father and I were going to talk to you tonight." "About what?" "Your father thinks it would be better if the trip were limited to 5 people. "Which 5 people?" "Your father and me, Megan, Ethan, and Chase." I stared through my office window at the traffic far below. "What about me? You said work was busy." "We know you would spend the whole trip on your laptop." I took the week off. "But you still bringing your computer to check my email." Claire, don't argue over every word. I kept my voice steady. "So you removed me from the vacation I paid for?" "Nobody removed you. We adjusted the plan. By leaving me at home." Mom lowered her voice. "You've been very tense lately. You and Megan haven't been getting along. Your father and I want our anniversary trip to be peaceful. We don't want drama." I could barely believe what I was hearing. "What drama?" "You know, the argument about the cabin, the watch Chase mentioned. Money Megan asked to borrow. Megan asked me for another $10,000. She's trying to rebuild her future. And because I said no, I am the problem." "Nobody said that. You removed me from the trip." Mom was silent. Then she said the sentence that changed something inside me. "Claire, the vacation is already paid for." Just because you paid doesn't mean you get to control everybody. I sat straighter. I am not asking to control anybody. I thought I was allowed to go on the trip I bought. I am not going to argue. We can talk after we get home. After you use my money to take a vacation. You returning a gift into a transaction. You turned your daughter into a credit card. She hung up. Less than a minute later, Dad called. He didn't say hello, you made your mother cry. Did you remove me from the trip? Stop using dramatic language. Answer me, he paused. You don't do well on family vacations. I laughed though nothing was funny. I am the only person in this family who can afford a family vacation. That's the problem, you always talk about money. Because all of you are always spending mine, his voice hardened. This trip was an anniversary gift, yes. And the person giving the gift was invited until you replaced her with Megan's boyfriend. Chase is practically family, what am I? Dad didn't answer immediately. That silence gave me a clearer answer than words ever could. Finally he said, you're an adult, stop being selfish, then he hung up. I sat alone in my office, looking at the 5 smiling faces on my phone. For the first time I didn't feel heartbroken, I felt awake. 10 minutes later I closed my office door and called the travel coordinator, a woman named Tessa. Hello, Ms. Bennett, she said. Are you ready for your trip? I need you to confirm the passenger list. Tessa, read the names. Robert Bennett, Linda Bennett, Megan Bennett. Chase Holloway, Ethan Bennett. I stopped her. Where is my name? She went quiet. There was a passenger change request 3 weeks ago, she said. Linda Bennett requested that your name be replaced with Chase Holloway in the 3rd cabin. I am the primary guest and the person who paid, yes. Then how was she able to change it? She had the booking code and answered the verification question. We sent a notification to the primary email address. I searched my inbox. The message was buried in a promotions folder between travel newsletters. I opened it. Your requested passenger change has been completed. Mom had used the booking information I gave her to access the reservation and replace me with Chase 3 weeks earlier. For 3 weeks my family had discussed clothes, luggage, and excursions with me while knowing I was no longer listed as a passenger. This wasn't an impulsive decision, it wasn't a misunderstanding. They had planned to deceive me. Ms. Bennett, Tessa said carefully, you are still the owner of the reservation. Would you like me to add you back? I looked at the picture of the 5 of them, no. Would you like to reverse the change involving Mr. Holloway? No, I took a breath. I want to know what I am allowed to cancel. Tessa explained that because I had purchased flexible travel protection, most of the costs could be returned as cash or travel credit. A few deposits were non-refundable, but I still controlled the cabins, packages, and services. What happens if I cancel 2 cabins, keep one, and change the passenger back to myself? I asked. That can be done, you are the primary guest. The spa packages, cancelable. The private excursions, cancelable. The drink packages, cancelable. The anniversary dinner, cancelable. Airport transfers, also cancelable. Tessa paused. Would you like me to process those changes now? I didn't answer immediately. Part of me was still waiting for guilt to stop me. The guilt came. For the first time, I refused to obey it. Cancel the 2 family cabins and every service connected to those passengers. And the 3rd cabin, change it back to my name. 1 passenger, yes. Would you like to keep the current balcony cabin? I looked at the refund amount on the screen. No. Upgrade me if a suite is available. Tessa typed for several seconds. There is 1 ocean suite left. I'll take it. Would you like to keep the specialty dining package? Yes, the spa, book it for me. The excursions, I'll choose my own later. Tessa was quiet for a moment. I don't usually say this to clients, she said, but I hope you have an incredible vacation, so do I. After the call, a new confirmation email arrived. 2 cabins had been canceled. Chase was gone from the reservation. Megan, Ethan, Mom, and Dad were no longer listed. I remained on the cruise, alone, in a suite. After the cost of my trip was deducted, I received $15,860 in refunds and credits. I moved the money into a private savings account. Then I muted the family group chat. I found out the following morning. The first call came from Megan at 6:12 a.m. I didn't answer. Then Ethan called, then Mom, then Dad. Within 40 minutes I had 23 missed calls and 17 messages. Megan wrote, "Are you insane?" Ethan wrote, "Tell me this is a system error." Mom wrote, "Call me now." Dad wrote, "You have gone too far." I made coffee, sat beside my window, and read every message. What stood out wasn't the anger. It was the complete absence of an apology. Nobody wrote, "Claire, we re sorry." Nobody said, "We were wrong to remove you." Nobody asked, "Are you okay?" Every message asked the same basic question. How dare you take our vacation away? I finally answered Mom's eighth call. "What did you do?" she shouted. "I canceled the services I paid for. That was our anniversary trip, and I was no longer invited. You can take back a gift after giving it. You also can spend someone else's money on a vacation and then exclude that person. We already bought our plane tickets. I paid for those too." Mom went silent. It was true. I had purchased all 6 plane tickets. They were flexible. I had canceled 5 and kept mine. "Claire," she said, shifting into the trembling voice that usually made me surrender, "I don't understand what kind of person you becoming. The kind who doesn't pay to be humiliated. We family." "Which family?" "Don't do that." "The family in the 5-person picture." She started crying. This time her tears didn't frighten me. I had heard them too many times. Mom cried when I refused to pay. She cried when I asked questions. She cried when the consequences of her behavior finally landed on her. "Your father will never forgive you," she said. "He can use the money he saved during the last 14 years while I supported him to book another trip." She hung up. 5 minutes later, Dad called. "Restore the reservation," he ordered. "No, that wasn't a request. You don't get to order me around. I am your father. And I am the person paying your bills. You being petty, maybe. You punishing an entire family because your feelings were hurt. No. I stopped financing people who decided I wasn't family. Do you know Megan bought new clothes for this trip? She can wear them at home." Ethan took the week off. "Then he has a week to look for better work." "What about your mother?" "You can take her somewhere using your own money." Dad drew a sharp breath. "You know I don't have that kind of money." "I know." Silence followed. That was the moment he understood I wasn't merely angry. Something had changed. "Claire," he said more quietly, "let us discuss this like adults. I tried to do that yesterday. You called me selfish. I was upset. You still haven't apologized." "I am not apologizing for wanting a peaceful vacation with my wife, paid for by me." "There you go again with the money." "Yes, Dad, the money again. Because every time all of you say family, what you really mean is my bank account." He hung up. I thought the situation might calm down. I was wrong. At almost 8 that evening, my apartment buzzer rang. On the security camera, I saw my father, mother, Megan, and Ethan standing in the hallway like a collection agency. I didn't open the door. Dad pounded on it. "Claire, open this door." I spoke through the intercom. "You need to leave." Megan looked directly into the camera. "You're destroying this family. I didn't invite you here. We have to talk. Anything that needs to be said can be said by phone." Mom stepped forward. "Claire, please, at least let me come inside." I almost unlocked the door. It was an old reflex. Mom begged and I surrendered. Mom cried and I paid. Dad became angry and I apologized. Then Megan spoke behind her. "Just restore the cruise and this can all be over." My hand moved away from the lock. I finally understood why they had come. They weren't there to repair the relationship. They were there to recover the vacation. "I will not restore the cruise," I said. Dad struck the door again. "Do you want us to get on our knees?" "No, I want you to leave. You are using money to control this family." I nearly laughed. "You drove 2 hours to pressure me into spending money, and you calling me controlling." "You have plenty of money," Megan said. $20,000 doesn't change your life. "Then why is it important enough for you to come here?" She had no answer. Ethan spoke next. "You promised us." "I promised to take my family." "We are your family. Then why wasn't I in the picture?" Nobody answered. Mom began to cry. "It was one stupid picture." "No. It was the first time all of you accidentally told the truth." I paused. "And since you here, I have something else to tell you." Dad looked up at the camera. "What?" "Beginning next month, I will no longer send the $1,200 payment." Mom's face drained of color. "Claire. I am also ending my payments on Mom's car insurance. I am removing everyone from my phone plan. Ethan has 60 days to start paying his own rent. Megan, I will not fund another business project." Megan's mouth fell open. You can do that, I just did. Dad's face turned red. You're abandoning your parents? No. I am stopping financial support for 4 capable adults. After everything we've done for you. I stood motionless in my apartment. That sentence used to have tremendous power over me. This time I asked, what have you done for me? Dad stared into the camera as if I had slapped him. We raised you, that was your responsibility. It wasn't alone I have to repay for the rest of my life. You're ungrateful, maybe. But from now on, I'll be ungrateful with my own money. I shut off the intercom. They stayed for almost 20 more minutes. Eventually, building security escorted them out. That night, Mom sent me a long message about the sacrifices she had made raising me. She wrote that Dad had worked for years to provide food and clothing. She said money had made me cold. She didn't mention secretly replacing me on the cruise. I sent one response. I will speak to you again when you can state exactly what you did and apologize without blaming me. She didn't answer. 2 weeks later, my Aunt Susan called. She was Mom's younger sister and the only relative who rarely asked me for money. Claire, what is going on? She asked. What did Mom tell you? She said you canceled the anniversary cruise because Megan was bringing her boyfriend. I gave a dry laugh. Of course she did. I sent Aunt Susan the screenshot, the passenger change email, and the call records. She was silent for a long time. Claire, I didn't know any of this. Nobody knew because Mom left that part out. I think everyone needs to sit down and talk. I didn't want to. But Aunt Susan had helped me when I first moved to Chicago. She was the only person who sent a card when I received my first promotion. Out of respect for her, I agreed to meet at her house on Sunday. I arrived at 3 in the afternoon. Dad, Mom, Megan, and Ethan were already seated in the living room. Chase wasn't there. Aunt Susan put coffee on the table. Nobody yells, she said. Nobody walks out. Everyone gets to speak. Dad folded his arms. We don't need group therapy. Claire needs to fix what she did. Aunt Susan looked at him. Robert, if that is how you begin, this conversation will end now. I sat across from my family. Mom wouldn't look at me. Claire, you go first, Aunt Susan said. I removed a folder from my bag. Megan rolled her eyes. You brought paperwork, yes. All of you have a habit of forgetting facts when the facts are inconvenient. I placed documents on the coffee table, monthly support transfers, the roofing invoice, Mom's vehicle deposit, Ethan's rent payments. Megan's business investment, the cruise invoice. During the previous 6 years alone, I had spent $126,300 supporting my family. That didn't include the earlier years. Mom stared at the total. You kept records of everything. I started keeping records when I realized nobody else remembered. Dad said you did those things voluntarily, yes. Then you can use them against us. I am not using them against you. I am explaining why I am stopping. Megan leaned forward. You're reacting as if we were never grateful. When was the last time you thanked me? I asked. Her mouth opened then closed. I turned to Ethan. Do you know how much rent I pay for you every month? He looked down. About $1,000. $1,650. I didn't know exactly. You didn't know because you never had to care. Mom wiped her eyes. What do you want, Claire? A medal. I wanted not to be removed from the vacation I paid for. We told you that you make everyone tense, Megan said. Aunt Susan turned to her. What exactly does Claire do that makes you tense? Megan shrugged. She judges people for what? For money. For the fact that I don't have a stable career. For Chase. I didn't judge you, I said. I stopped giving you money. Exactly. The room became silent. Megan hadn't realized she had just admitted the truth. To her, my love and my money were the same thing. When the money stopped, she experienced it as judgment. Dad said, Claire, you're more successful than your siblings. You should want to help them. I did help. Family doesn't set limits. Family is where limits are needed most. Mom looked up. So you really plan to take that cruise alone? Yes. While your parents sit at home? Yes. How can you enjoy yourself knowing how hurt we are? I looked at her. How were you going to enjoy yourself knowing I was left at home? She didn't answer. That's the part I can understand, I continued. Not that you wanted to travel without me. You planned to let me pay, lied to me for 3 weeks, and intended to remove me 3 days before departure. How was I supposed to find out? At the airport? At the port? Mom stared at her hands. Megan spoke. She was going to tell you when before we left. My name was replaced with Chase S. 3 weeks ago. Aunt Susan turned toward Mom. Linda, is that true? Mom began crying. Chase is important to Megan. He might become our son-in-law. I nodded slowly. So to make room for a potential son-in-law, you removed your actual daughter. Don T. Say it that way. That is what you did. Dad struck the arm of his chair. That's enough. We Aaron T. sitting here while Claire tortures her mother. I looked at him. You still believe Mom is the person who was hurt most? Your mother looked forward to that trip all year, so did I. You can travel whenever you want, because I have money. Yes, I gave a tired smile. And there is the real issue again. Aunt Susan asked Robert, are you sorry for removing Claire from the trip? Dad looked directly at me. I am sorry your feelings were hurt. I shook my head. That isn't an apology. I just apologized. You apologized for my feelings, not for your actions. What do you want me to say? You could say, I am sorry we secretly removed you from a trip you paid for. It was wrong and cruel. His jaw tightened. I want to repeat words you wrote for me. Because you don't believe them. He said nothing. I gathered my papers. Then this conversation is finished. Mom stood. Claire, please don't do this. I looked at her and waited. She stepped closer. I am sorry everything became so ugly. What are you sorry for doing? She didn't answer. I waited several seconds. Finally she said, you know I love you. I stood. I know you need me. Her eyes widened. But needing someone isn't the same as loving them, I said. Then I left Aunt Susan's house. On the first day of the following month, I didn't send my parents $200. At 9 that morning, Mom texted, did you forget the transfer? I didn't answer. At noon, she wrote, the mortgage is due tomorrow. I replied, I gave you notice. You and Dad need to arrange your own finances. Dad called immediately. The bank doesn't care about family disagreements. And I am no longer responsible for your loan. We could lose the house. You can sell the SUV. Your mother needs a car. You can purchase one she can afford. You're enjoying this, Aaron T. No. But I am no longer rescuing everyone from consequences. Ethan sent me a picture of his rent notice. Do you want me to become homeless? I sent him links to 5 companies that were hiring. He responded, not every job is right for me. I wrote, paying your rent isn't right for me. Megan posted online, sometimes the people with the most are the least generous. I didn't respond. She deleted it 2 days later after Aunt Susan commented, sometimes the people who receive the most are the least grateful. For several weeks my family tried everything, anger, tears, silence. Recruiting relatives to call me. Claiming Mom might be having heart trouble, saying Dad was depressed. Warning that Ethan might have to move home. Saying Megan had lost faith in the meaning of family. I heard all of it. But nobody offered a sincere apology. They weren't grieving the loss of me. They were grieving the loss of what I provided. I started seeing a therapist named Dr. Harris. During our first appointment, she asked, if Claire Bennett isn't financially supporting her family, who does Claire believe she is? I couldn't answer. I had built my entire identity around being useful, the problem solver, the dependable one. The person who always showed up, the person who always paid. It seems you learned that love had to be purchased through sacrifice, Dr. Harris said. That sentence made me cry, not quietly. I cried as though someone had opened a room that had been locked for 14 years. I remembered every birthday trip I canceled because my parents needed money, every vacation I postponed. Every pair of shoes I didn't buy. The tiny apartment I continued renting even after I could afford something better. The evenings I worked late because Ethan needed rent. The dates I canceled because Megan was having another crisis. I had lived like someone waiting to receive permission to be happy. But that permission never came. The people benefiting from my sacrifice had no reason to tell me to stop. On departure day, I woke at 4 in the morning. For a moment, guilt flooded through me. My parents were supposed to be traveling to the airport. Megan was supposed to wear her new dresses. Ethan was supposed to post pictures from the bar. I almost opened the family group chat. Then I remembered the picture of the 5 of them. I rolled my suitcase out the door. On the flight to Miami, I sat beside a woman in her 60s named Evelyn. She asked who I was traveling with. I am going alone. First time, yes, you're going to love it. Do you travel alone often since my husband died? At first I thought traveling alone was sad. Then I realized the saddest thing was staying home and waiting for somebody else to give me permission to live. I stared at her. You just said exactly what I needed to hear. When I boarded the Ocean Crown, I felt a strange emptiness. I had expected to be lonely without my family. Instead, I felt relieved. Nobody asked me to carry luggage. Nobody complained about the cabin. Nobody demanded restaurant reservations. Nobody pushed a bill toward me. The suite was larger than my first apartment. It had a sitting area, a huge balcony, and a bottle of champagne waiting on the table. Beside it was a card. MS Bennett, enjoy the vacation you deserve, Tessa. I stood on the balcony as the ship left the port. My phone buzzed. Mom had sent a message. I hope you're happy after destroying our anniversary. I read it, then I turned off my phone. That evening, I wore the dark blue dress and went to the specialty restaurant alone. The host asked, are you waiting for someone? No, I said, it's just me. It was the first time I had ever said those words without feeling the need to apologize. For 7 days I did what I wanted. I slept late, I read books on the deck, I took a cooking class, I went snorkeling. I had lunch with Evelyn twice. I booked a 90-minute massage without checking the price. On one of the islands, I bought a small bracelet from a local artist. Inside, the artist engraved the words, my life belongs to me. I wore it every day. 3 months later, Aunt Susan invited the entire family to Thanksgiving dinner. I almost declined, but I didn't want to lose my relationship with her because of my parents. The room became cold when I arrived. Megan was sitting beside a new man, not Chase. Apparently, they had broken up 2 weeks after the cruise was canceled. Ethan had moved back in with my parents and started working at a warehouse. Mom had sold the SUV and purchased a used sedan. Dad had taken a part-time job at a home improvement store. In other words, once I stopped paying, my entire family discovered they were capable of supporting themselves. Dinner remained tense but civil until Aunt Susan asked about the cruise. Did you enjoy it? Very much. Megan set down her fork. I am sure you did. A luxury suite all by yourself? Yes, I said. It was very peaceful. Her expression hardened. Mom spoke quickly. We don't need to discuss that again. Dad took a drink of wine. Claire likes discussing it. She needs everyone to know she won. I don't think it was a competition. You canceled the trip, cut off the money, and abandoned your family. If that wasn't punishment, what was it? A boundary. Don't use therapy words with me, then I'll use simple words, my money, my decision. Megan gave a bitter laugh. You've become frighteningly selfish. I turned toward her. Are you paying your own rent yet? That has nothing to do with this. It has everything to do with this. Mom placed a hand on the table. Enough, this is Thanksgiving. I looked around the table. You rewrite it as a day for gratitude. So I want to ask a question. Is anyone here grateful for what I did during the last 14 years? Nobody spoke. Aunt Susan looked down. Ethan rotated his glass in his hands. Megan shrugged. Dad said we thanked you plenty of times. When? I didn't record the dates. I don't remember them either, because they rarely happened. Mom said, what do you want us to do, Claire? Stand and applaud? No, I want a real apology. Dad pushed his chair back. This again? Yes. Because none of you has apologized. We said we were sorry you were hurt. No. I looked directly at my parents. I want you to acknowledge that you secretly removed me from a vacation I paid for. You planned to spend more than $21,000 of my money while I sat at home. And when you were caught, you weren't afraid of losing your daughter. You were afraid of losing your trip. Mom began crying. Dad said you always turn yourself into the victim. I stood. No. I spent 14 years pretending I wasn't a victim because I was terrified that acknowledging the truth would mean I had to leave all of you. Nobody forced you to give us money, Megan said. I nodded. You rewrite. She looked surprised. Nobody forced me, I continued. You only taught me that if I didn't pay, I was a terrible daughter, a selfish sister, and the person destroying the family. You didn't need a weapon. You used guilt. Dad stood as well. You should be careful how you speak to me. No. You should have been careful how you treated the person holding your entire life together. The room became completely silent. I could hear the clock on the wall. Mom wiped her eyes. So you don't need us anymore? The question made me pause. I looked at her for a long time. I never needed you to pay my bills. That isn't what I meant. I know. I took a breath. I needed you to love me even when I wasn't paying yours. But since I stopped, all you've shown me is anger. You never asked if I was okay. You never asked why I had tolerated this for so long. You never asked how badly you hurt me. Mom lowered her face. I finally said the sentence I had held inside for 3 months. You aren't angry because you lost a daughter. You're angry because you lost an ATM. Dad shouted, "Get out." Aunt Susan stood immediately. "This is my house, Robert." But I had already picked up my purse. "It's okay, Aunt Susan, I am leaving." Ethan suddenly stood. "Wait." Everyone looked at him. He wasn't looking at our parents. He was looking at me. "She's right." Megan stared at him. "Ethan," he shook his head. "No, she's right." He faced me. "I knew you were paying my rent, but I never thought about how hard you worked to earn that money. When you stopped, I was furious. I thought you were trying to make me suffer." He swallowed. "Then I started working at the warehouse, 10-hour shifts on my feet. That was when I understood. You worked like that for years and I only saw you as the person who had money." My eyes burned. "I am sorry I used you," Ethan said. "Not because the cruise was canceled. I am sorry because I treated you like you existed to repair my life." It was the first genuine apology I had received. There was no manipulative crying, no blame, only the truth. I stepped forward and hugged my brother. Dad turned away. Megan folded her arms. Mom cried harder. For the first time, I didn't turn around to rescue her from her own emotions. 1 year later, my life looked completely different. I moved into an apartment with large windows overlooking Lake Michigan. I bought the sofa I actually wanted instead of choosing the cheapest option so I could save money for my family's next emergency. I enrolled in a Thursday night photography class. I traveled to New York with a friend. I opened an investment account for my own future. I continued therapy. I also began dating a man named Daniel, who always paid his share and never made love feel like a debt. My family relationships didn't disappear entirely. I spoke with Ethan regularly. He stayed at the warehouse and was promoted to shift supervisor. He moved into his own apartment and paid his own rent. On my birthday, he sent me a card with $200 inside. The card said, "I know this can repay everything you did. This is only the first step in learning to take responsibility." I returned the money and told him to put it into an emergency fund, but I kept the card. Megan contacted me only when she needed something. As I continued saying no, she contacted me less often. Dad barely spoke to me. Mom occasionally sent family pictures or messages such as, "I miss the old Claire." One day I answered. The old Claire was exhausted and miserable. "You miss the fact that she always said yes." Mom didn't respond. 6 months after Thanksgiving, she called and asked if we could meet for coffee. I agreed to meet near my office. She looked older. Not as though she had aged many years, but like someone who was no longer being protected from consequences. She stirred her coffee for a long time. "I talked to Susan," she said. I waited. She told me I needed to apologize without explaining myself. I remained silent. Mom took a breath. "I am sorry I used your money and treated your help as something I was entitled to." Her voice shook. "I am sorry I secretly changed your name on the cruise reservation. I knew it would hurt you. That's why I hid it. I told myself you were busy and didn't like vacations, but the truth is that I wanted to avoid upsetting Megan." She looked at me. "I chose Megan's comfort over your dignity." My chest tightened. "When you canceled the trip, the first thing I thought about was the money and the vacation," she continued. "I didn't think about you." "That was terrible." She wiped her eyes. "I don't expect you to pay for anything again. I don't expect things to return to the way they were. I only want you to know that I understand what I did." I looked at her for a long time. "Thank you for saying that. Do you forgive me?" "I am working on it," she nodded. For the first time, she didn't pressure me to give an answer that made her feel better. We sat together for another 20 minutes. Nobody mentioned money. It was the first ordinary conversation we had shared in years. On the 1-year anniversary of the cruise, a small package arrived. Inside was a framed photograph from Evelyn, the woman I met on the flight. We had stayed in touch. The picture had been taken on the ship's deck during the final evening. I stood in front of the ocean wearing my blue dress, the wind pushing my hair away from my face. I was laughing. It wasn't the polite smile I wore in family photographs. It wasn't the smile I used when paying bills and pretending everything was fine. It was the smile of a woman who had realized she didn't need an invitation to a life she was already financing. Evelyn had written something on the back. Claire, never return to a place where people only love the version of you who pays. I placed the photograph on my desk. Beside it was the bracelet engraved with the words, "My life belongs to me." I used to believe boundaries were cruel. I thought saying no was selfish. I thought loving my family meant rescuing them from every consequence, even while I was drowning. Now I understand. Kindness without boundaries eventually stops being kindness. It becomes permission for other people to exploit you. Sacrifice that is never appreciated does not build love. It creates an expectation that you will keep sacrificing. And the people who become angriest when you establish boundaries are often the people who benefited most when you had none. I don't regret helping my family. I regret helping them for so long that I forgot to help myself. I don't regret canceling their cruise either. The truth is, I didn't cancel a family vacation. I stopped financing a trip where they had already decided I wasn't family. They lost a cruise. I got my life back. And that was the first gift I ever gave myself without feeling guilty.